by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Shalom, shalom. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai. Another Haftarah review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11231. Giving glory to the King of the universe, Yehudah, praying for the life of all Yisrael scattered in the four corners of the earth, praying that the Creator of heaven and earth be with each and every one of us. Those of you who are online, I say early Shabbat Shalom to all of you. I pray that the Creator continue to be with you all and protect you, and praying that the Creator will continue to guide and protect us as we are approaching the holy season, this holy 7th month, that will bring many holy days, and we get a chance to atone for our sins and to present ourselves before the Creator, and hopefully after we would have a clean slate as we confess our sins to the Creator on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the Day of Atonement. So thanking the Creator of heaven and earth for being who He is, and I appreciate all of your support. Continue to support the channel. Continue to support Nasik, Zurishaddai, and everybody who comes on the platform and tries to bring you wisdom and understanding and try to help you to navigate life and teaching the commandments and the things that need to be learned in order to navigate life. So giving due respect to the leadership of D.C.B, my brother, Prince Yadiel Ben Yisrael, praying that the Most High God be with him and his family, his household, his children, grandchildren. I pray that the Creator of heaven and earth will continue to be with all of our brothers and sisters at Congregation D.C.B and abroad, all of you who listen. So at this time, we're going to move ahead and we're going to hear from one of my teachers, one of my mentors. He will be going over the portion, the Haftarah Re'eh, and that is none other than Nasik, Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform on D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yariel Ben Yisrael, to the host Chief Uziel, to the princes, chiefs, Maureen, Kohanim, the Rabbinate, brothers and sisters and visitors. I greet you all unto my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and then early Shabbat Shalom. First, I'd like to say Adonai Sabtadi Taku Fiyagi Tilatheaka, O Lord, down my lips. My mouth should declare thy praise. We'll be going over the portion called Re'eh, which means to see, technically, means to see. And what's interesting, for those, let me give you, for those that might not be familiar with the breakdown of how people of our persuasion might define certain sections in scriptures. So what's commonly start from Deuteronomy, the 11th chapter, the 26th verse, and it goes to the 16th chapter, the 17th verse. That is the actual Sidra. But the Haftarah I'll be reading from now Isaiah, which will be Isaiah 54:11, going to 55:5. So as we look in the last portion, this season here, Re'eh usually comes in just before the 6 months, which we refer to as Elul, or on a Rosh Chodesh of Elul. That's when normally that Sidra Re'eh might come in. But it's interesting to note that in the month of Elul is like the 6th month of our year, counting from the Exodus, from the month of what we refer to as Aviv, and some people might say Nisan, which, basically got a root of miracles in it, because we had a lot of miracles, wonders, and signs for us in that particular month. And it was a month about redemption, liberation from a condition of slavery. Now, when we look at, say, C, what are we supposed to be seeing in more of a spiritual sense, that on the 6th day of the week, we're supposed to recognize that we should be prepared for Shabbat. On the seventh month, we're supposed to be in 6 months, 6th month, we're supposed to be preparing for the 7th month, before the time of our rededication to the Most High God. And every 7 years, we got a chance to be free from debts, which is covered in this particular portion here. And if we operated in this system like this in America, pretty much everybody will get a new start every 7 years. But, being as it may, it talks a little bit about tithing in this particular section. It talks about, false prophets and things of that nature. Talk about dietary laws. So I'm not going to be able to cover, a lot of stuff in this section here. So always, as always, say that you should go over it, take your time, and draw up some questions to ask your various leaders and teachers. But now I just want to look at the beginning of A just a little bit, and possibly highlight some things. It says, "Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you shall hearken unto the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day, and a curse, if ye shall not hearken unto the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this day, to go after other gods which ye have not known." Now, it used the word re'eh, to see. Now, 95% of our learning comes from seeing. We use our senses to learn. Seeing, hearing, smelling, taste, touch. But 95% of our learning comes from seeing, and only 5% combined with all the others. That's all we learn from. We learn only 5%. That means if you hear, you only learn 5%. If you're tasting, 5%. All that's part of, and that's collectively together. That means hearing, tasting, feeling, what you touch, stuff like that. Those senses, and smelling, we only perceive about 5% of information. Where 95% we get from seeing. So hence, we would say a person that's deaf, he has a deficit, but he can get around a lot better than a blind individual. So, so that person be more of a deficit there. Now, there's several things we got. One, we got to ask the question, why now we're talking about, see something? When those, we know at Mount Sinai, those people, some of the people wasn't there, to hear, or to see the wonders and, that the Creator had done at Mount Sinai, that see that great revelation. All right. And also, some people wasn't there to hear the Creator speak, and some people didn't hear Moses, when he gave his dissertation years back, and don't want to hear him even until the very day. So now he wants you to use another sense, more so, which is see. And the question should come up, how do you see a blessing? And how do you see a curse? Is a blessing something you can actually see, or the results of something that's manifested later? And we will call it either a blessing, or we will call it either a curse. So we got to, prepare ourselves to think about that, because it's really saying what I'm looking at, is it a blessing? Or what I'm looking at, is it a curse? And given our history of what we saw in the wilderness, what we saw on Mount Sinai, and what we heard, did we consider it a blessing or did we consider it a curse? And we know we were shook up behind it. Next, we got to ask that why Moses, 40 years later in his discourse, laid those options before us, when the Creator never laid an option before us in the past. So now we got something that's right now being presented to us that was never laid before us in the past, which is, you got the curses over here and you got the blessings over here, and that depending on whether you can see or understand what is a curse and what is a blessing. And another thing to discuss later on is why to use the word asher, for the adverbial clause if, and then with the blessings, and then when it gets to the curses, they use the word in for the adverbial clause. Now, sometimes it's interchangeable, but why in this one setting? And then when we look at it and see, and we got to realize when a presentation is put before you, all right, you got to say, do you really got a choice if something's really presented before you? Got to ask those questions, because something's placed here. I got these two items. Which one you want? So you're limited, and you automatically corral into you're either going to take this or you're either going to take that. So you're pretty much limited into, do you really have a choice? All right. But most people would say, hey, God gave us a choice. And the scriptures doesn't verify where God gave us a choice. We have free will. Moses said he presenting this before us this day because he's the teacher and he's making sure that he drum home this last address on this treatise, as I spoke last time about the whole book of Deuteronomy. So those are some things to consider as we go forward. It's so much detail in here, but and then it goes on, and talks even further. In the 29th verse of the same chapter of 11 chapter about Deuteronomy. And it shall come to pass, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, that thou shalt set the blessings upon Mount Gerizim and the curse upon Mount Ebal. So now that makes it a concept. Because do you really lift up a curse and put it somewhere? Or do you really lift up a blessing and put it somewhere? And what makes something a blessing? And then, and what makes something a curse? All right. Are they not beyond the Jordan, behind the way of the going down of the sun, in the land of the Canaanites that dwell in the Arba, over against Gilgal, besides the Terebinth of Moreh? For ye are to pass over the Jordan to go into possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you. And ye shall possess it and dwell there, and ye shall observe to do all the statutes and the ordinances which I set before you this day. All right. So now it brings out a couple other little areas of concern. All right. So I'm not going to have time to really do it justice, but I just want to speak about the next section in the 12th chapter, when it says, these are the statutes and ordinances which ye shall observe to do in the land which the Lord thy God, the God of thy fathers, had given thee to possess it, all the days that ye live upon the earth. Ye shall surely destroy all the places wherein the nations that ye are to possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains and upon the hills and under every leafy tree. And ye shall break down their altars and dash in pieces their pillars and burn their asherim with fire. And ye shall hew down the graven images of their gods, and ye shall destroy their name out of that place. Ye shall not do so unto the Lord your God, but unto the place which the Lord your God shall choose out of all your tribes to put his name there, even unto his habitation shall you seek. Neither thou shalt come, and neither ye shall bring, thither thou shalt come, and thither ye shall bring your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your tithes and the offerings of your hand and your vows and your freewill offerings and the first of your herd and of your flock. And they shall eat before the Lord your God, and ye shall rejoice in all that you put your hand unto, ye and your household, wherein the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. All right, so he's describing what some things might be a blessing. You shall not do after all that you do here this day, every man whatsoever is right in his own eyes, for ye are not as yet come to the rest and to the inheritance which the Lord your God hath given thee. So in other words, certain things are going to change. The way they operated in the wilderness, and like I said, a lot of laws was just theoretical, and some things are going to be changed dynamically when they cross over into the Jordan. Also, what is interesting is that the destroying of the idols, places of worship that's in the land. We know they got the state of Israel today. You know, in the land of Israel, you got the mosques, you got the churches, you got Buddhist temples, you got some of everything going over there that's standing there. All right. So it's obvious that we haven't reached that time, you know, where we could say, even by the hotel, you got the Christians quarters, you know, you got a little area near where the, you know, the Muslims and the Arabs be at, you know, Arabic spots where most of them stay at. So you got a lot of, you know, things that will have to change dynamically when the Creator decide to bring about, you know, that time of transformation, and what we refer to in comedy the Messianic period. But you have radicals today that would go ahead and create havoc with no authority given to them directly, and not being in a position of authority, that will create havoc. So that I'm cautioning people, because I know people wish to go to cemeteries and tear down tombstones of Christian places. Some tear down Jewish places, tombstones. Some go ahead and tear down, creating havoc in mosques and stuff of that nature. But it's only in the land of Israel. That's what this law is concerned with. Within the land of Israel, which is unique. It didn't say over in Europe. It didn't say over in Rome. It didn't say over in Egypt or even over here in America, where most of us reside. It said in the land of Israel, and it's at a particular time when you become sovereign again. So we got to consider, you know, when people say, they have this saying that say, well, there's only one God, no matter what you call him. As we always say, what you call me matters little to compared to what I might answer to. So if it's only one God, you know, no matter what you call him, then what kind of answer you gonna get if it's not, it doesn't matter. So we got to consider all those areas there as we move forward. So we learned a couple of things there as well about certain services, that even our own particular service is going to change. We get laws of eating within this particular sidra, and I just want to read in 15th verse of the 12th chapter. It says, notwithstanding thou mayest kill and eat flesh within all thy gates, after all the desire of thy soul, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee. The unclean and the clean may eat thereof, as a gazelle and as the hart. Only you shall not eat the blood. thou shalt pour it out upon the earth as water. Thou mayest not eat within the gates, thou mayest not eat within thy gates the tithe of thy corn, which is basically wheat in the Eastern culture, or of thy wine, or of thy oil, or the firstlings of thy herd, or thy flock, nor any of thy vows which thou vowest, nor thy freewill offerings, nor the offering of thy hand. But thou shalt eat them before the Lord thy God in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. The word hamakom, the place, is in this particular portion, basically is mentioned about roughly 16 times, give or take. The place itself is also referred to as another name that we in rabbinic and modern post-biblical literature that they refer to as the creator, the place where he could be reached at, hamakom. When it's talking about eating flesh, now you have a lot of people like I brought out before about people that prefer to be vegans in that area there, I just went past the vegetarians into vegans. When the tabernacle was standing and we was in the wilderness, and once we had the tabernacle erected, we was not allowed to be slaughtering animals haphazardly in our own particular location, if outside our tent and everything like that, unless we brought it to the door of the tabernacle. Hence, that brings up the issue, who gonna give us meat? So we can understand why some of the people might have complained, not saying they're justifiably complaining, but we can understand the rationale of their complaint is when you out there, when you got a tabernacle, you start off with 5 priests, now you only got 3 priests, and you got 3 million people. And you're saying, now you can't eat meat, slaughter your cattle. Now, you notice it was about the cattle, but not so much even about the pheasants or the birds, the quails that came. So that's something to consider and ask your teachers too. If it's about the slaughtering practices, because in this particular portion here, you actually find a hint on when they talk about the way you should slaughter an animal. Thinking, let me read it. Let me see if I can pick it up. And let me see, maybe the 12, 20. I'm gonna start at 20. The laws for eating flesh. When the Lord thy God shall enlarge thy borders as he has promised thee, and thou shalt say, I will eat flesh, because thy soul desireth to eat flesh, that thou mayest eat flesh after all the desire of thy soul. If the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to put his name there be too far from thee, then thou shalt kill of the herd of thy flock, which the Lord has given thee, as I have commanded thee. That one little verse, as I commanded thee, and thou shalt eat within thy gates after all the desire of thy heart, of thy soul. Now, that 21st verse of the 12th chapter is the only hint or glimmering of how that we had a certain system of slaughtering an animal. That's what they extrapolated from a rabbinic literature. All right, so they extrapolate the process of how an animal should be slaughtered from this particular verse right here in this particular chapter, because and then, like I said, now they extend it to fowls, but they don't, extend it to fish, sea creatures, but it extended to fowls. So this is basically was reference to, because we know also that sometimes, a priest might, pinch the head of a pigeon or whatever the case is in certain rituals. Not that say he ate it, but, he would slaughter the pigeon in that fashion for certain rituals when it comes to certain offerings, sin offerings. So I'm not going to focus that much on it. I just want to bring out and highlight some points where certain things come from and how people extrapolate certain things from what's written in the book itself in that particular verse. But you know, a lot of people had this strong feeling about we shouldn't eat meat because they talk about, after all, you know, the desire of thy soul. So that means we decide that the lust after it, not it was ever a command for us to eat basa. It was a law permitting us to eat basa. Now, I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian myself, so you know, I'm not advocating for or against, you know, being a vegan as opposed to an omnivore, you know, according to our kashrut laws. But I'm just saying that it's noticed that what is permitted sometimes is to derail us from committing certain sins, I believe. And when you say, well, what makes a person a violator? It's when a law that is erected that they say, okay, it's an established rule or law, and then you go against that law. So if you make a lot of laws and they don't be normally considerate humane laws, then you could put a lot of people in position to be prone to be a violator if it's not that humane. I mean, that's for another topic, another subject, you know, because the more laws you make, the more possibilities you're gonna make. You can promote, you know, people that violate them, criminals. But if you had no laws, then it's never a violation. So therefore, you decriminalize all the society where they have no responsibility. So you got to look for a particular balance, and the best balance we have is the law, statutes, and judgments that was brought down by the prophet Moshe Rabbeinu, that was given from the Holy One, Baruch. So blessed be He. So now we're gonna go into towards the end of this particular portion. I mean, that chapter, the 12, and it talks about and here about human sacrifices, which is one of the things taught from 29th verse. It says, "When the Lord thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whether thou go in to dispossess them, and thou to dispossess them and dwell in their lands, take heed to thyself that thou be not ensnared to follow them after that they are destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, how use these nations to serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise." So the Creator has a neat way of serving, and for him to be served. He designates what he requires us and how he wants to be served. So when you come up and say, well, I'm going to do it my way, that's only for the singer. That's not for, the Creator. And everybody knows the famous saying that says, I did it my way. And said, how I use these nations to serve their gods. Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God, for every abomination to the Lord, which he hated, have they done unto their gods. For even their sons and their daughters do they burn in the fire to their gods. Human sacrifice was frowned upon. Moshe is bringing that out. That they say, well, you going at? That's what they're doing. How could you have compassion for a baby, a male or female, and talk about, I'm going to offer it up to a God? And I know a lot of people say, well, that was one of the tests of Abraham. It was a test for Abraham. And, when I spoke on that before, he was going to comply with God. So he showed that he will obey God, even if willing and necessary, to give his last son that was dead, his son that was innocent, Yitzchak. And you notice I said his son who was innocent, Yitzchak, to be sacrificed before the Creator. And I always bring out within that episode, he passed the test, but what did he fail? You know, where did he fail? So, and these are real. It's not to be disparaging about our great ancestor or anything like that, but the acts and deeds are written for our edification and learning to try to be better in life. And we're supposed to learn from it, because we're told to look to the rock from which was hewn and the pit from which was dug, which was a few Haftarahs back. So we got to consider that. And then we get into the next thing, the 13th chapter of Deuteronomy, and talks about, in reference to all these words which I command you, that ye shall observe to do, that thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. All right, now, what do they mean by that? We're constantly expounding and reinterpreting law all the time. You know, we're applying laws of yesteryears to our situation today. When it says do not add or diminish, that means that what you're going to actually do is taint a law. All right. Say if we, I'm give a added violation in a sense. If you're told to eat matzah during the Passover and in that week of Kal Matzah, and you decide to eat it all year round, unleavened bread, that's not a violation in itself. Now, if you intend to say, I want to extend the Kal Matzah for a whole year, then that would be a violation, because that day was that feast was only for that particular week, and you say, okay, I want to extend it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or the year by doing the same process. So that would be adding, and that would be a violation, because now your intention is to think that you're bettering something that's already there. So if you're intending on you think you're making the law better by doing it that way, you know, then it does become a violation in itself. And then if you say, okay, we got we got one temple over here. Why we don't build 2 temples? All right, we got one here. Why don't we just build another one over here? You know, next door, so that we could get things moving a little better. Or we could build 3 or 4. Then that's when you would be violating. Or we say, okay, the temple's up on the mountain. We down here in this valley right here. We're in sight of the temple. We're close enough. We're going to offer up the sacrifice right now. You know, right here, because this is the road leading straight up to the door of the temple. You know, things like that to be a violation, you know, in the law. But I don't want to dwell on that too much, because there's a lot of things I could bring up scenarios. The second verse, which is important: if there arise in the midst of thee a prophet or a dream, and he gives thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes to pass, whether he spoke unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God putteth you to prove, to know whether ye do love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. All right. And then it goes, you know, so now that's the question. I'm not going to speak on this much, but I just want to bring out this first part. A prophet, you know, or a dreamer of dreams, you know, and sometimes you might use the term, a seer for the prophet, you know, in that sense, and in this particular portion. Now, why, you know, a one that's supposed to see the future, see things in dreams, or a prophet. Now, what we're saying is not a guy that just wake up all of a sudden and say, oh, I feel like a prophet today. It's not talking about that. It's talking about a guy that you know that had been a prophet in the past, or this guy that had, so the prophet, he might have been a prophet in the past. That's why I said when we're on the rise amongst you as a prophet. So he had to be a prophet of the past. But now we're talking about a dreamer of dreams. Everybody dream. Everybody have a dream sometime. So that's a different status now. Whereas you have a prophet, guy, he said, yeah, this guy's, he used to be a prophet. We read in history about it, a prophet that was well known amongst, his time. He was supposed to be a legal prophet according to the scriptures, and a lion spirit was in his mouth, and he told the guy to do something and violate what he was told directly by the Creator. And this young prophet lost his life. So that means that both of them was a prophet. One was an older prophet, one was a younger prophet. The older prophet gave the younger prophet some bad advice, and the younger prophet winds up, taking the older prophet advice and got killed. So when it's talking about a prophet, it's people already that had that credential. Now, a dreamer of dreams, a guy had dreams, and through your dreams is another a whole system concerning about dreams. But I'm not here to speak on that much, in this particular setting. But some people gives reality to their dreams, and some people, can be either make their dreams look positive and make it, and push and focus on it and make it work, and the other people might dreams might work against them. Now, I'm gonna give you an example of what I just said. We know about the one of our ancestors, Joseph. Joseph himself, had dreams. Now, and he told his brothers his dreams. His dreams got him in trouble, and dreams got him out of trouble. His dreams got him in trouble. Other people's dreams got him out of trouble. That's ironic. But when we look at Joseph himself in the area, is when he recognized his brothers when they first came down there, then he remembered the dream. And you remember that, so when you go back to Genesis, for those who might want to look at it, so when his brothers came down there, and Joseph was able to identify his brothers, but they couldn't identify him, Joseph then remembered the dream, and he did things to try to make it work out like he dreamt it. So that's an example of people trying to sometimes make their dreams become a reality. So we know that exists, because we know that when our great guys like Joseph himself, came up with a certain dream, all right, and try to make it and implement it. But you notice you could challenge a prophet if he tells you something out the way. You don't challenge the judges, which is coming to next week. So I'm gonna leave that one alone to speak on that another time. And then, but to tell you that, and that prophet or that dreamer of dreams in the 6th verse shall be put to death, because he has spoken perversion against the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed thee out of the house of bondage, to draw thee aside out of the way which the Lord thy God commanded thee to walk in. So shalt thou put away the evil from the midst of thee. So that individual, anybody that try to take you to tell you to serve another God, that's a death penalty, period. And I'm not going to elaborate too much on it, but it goes on to talk about family members now. All right. It said, the brother, the son of thy mother, or the son of thy son, or thy daughter, or the wife of thy bosom, or thy friend that is at thy own soul, entice thee secretly, saying, let us go and serve other gods which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, of the gods of the people that are round about you, nigh unto thee, or far off from thee. All right, from the one end of the earth, even to the other end of the earth. All right. I just want to bring on that one verse, and I'm going to move on. All right. That one verse, when we talk about that, we look at, which I find strange, it says, that brother, all right, the son of thy mother. Well, of course, if you're the son of your mother, he's your brother. But if he's a son of your father, he's still your brother as well. So now, why focus on the son of thy mother as opposed to the son of thy father? Well, mostly if you had the same mother, you seem to be a lot closer than if you had the same father and different mothers, as we see within our own particular history of the 12 tribes. All right, so we're gonna just move on from there. But those guys, you would go ahead on and stone if they make you serve another god. What's interesting is that they don't mention your father or your mother in this case. Just people that you could able to judge. And we skip on down to the 14th and talk about dietary law. 14th chapter, it says, "Ye are the children of the Lord your God. You should not cut yourself nor make any boldness between your eyes for the dead, for thou art holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord hath chosen thee to be his own treasure out of all peoples that are upon the face of the earth." So certain markings we got. Certain people in certain tribes in Africa have markings and stuff like that. For people like notches and stuff like that. We're not supposed to get involved in that kind of stuff there. And then it goes on about, "Thou shalt not eat any abominable thing, and these are the beasts which you may eat." And this chapter here enumerates about, I believe, 10 beasts that enumerates here that it didn't quite enumerate in Leviticus the 11th chapter. But we know in a nutshell that it's basically talking about, we only can eat those animals, beasts that have split hooves, cloven footed, and cheweth the cud, ruminate. All right, and then we're gonna skip on down. We know fishes that have fins and scales. Anything anything that moves in the waters, because they usually don't use the word fish here. But these you may eat of all that are in the waters. Whatsoever have fins and scales may ye eat, and whatsoever have no fins and no scale you should not eat. It's unclean to you. All right, so it enumerates several kinds of status of fishes. So to let you know that more, they're gonna have more in the water. Usually, Torah tend to take the easiest road out there. You're gonna have more creatures in the waters that usually have fins and scales than those that don't have fins and scales. So, and then that according to rabbinic literature, they even say that if they have scales, they're gonna already have fins. Now we don't know about all that because there's a lot of things in the oceans we haven't seen yet. But we know the book says fins and scales. But according to rabbinic literature, that any fish there's no fish that exists that have scales and don't have fins. But they will have fins and no scales. So, shark meat we can't be messing with. Octopus can't be messing with. Squid and all that. Oysters, clams, etc. So that makes it pretty easy. Now, if a mermaid come out, what they call a mermaid, she got scales and she got a fin. She ain't got to have a bunch of fins, just scales and fin. That's it. Then, strange as it might sound, she'd be part of the menu. If it was such a thing, or he would be part of the menu if it was a male or female, such a thing. All right, so, and it goes on saying, and we're not supposed to eat any thing that dies of itself, but it says, you should not eat anything that dies of itself. Thou mayest give it to the stranger that within thy gates, that he may eat it, or thou mayest sell it to a foreigner, for thou art holy people unto the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. All right, I just want to focus on a couple of things in that before I move on a little bit. I'm trying to move a little faster in that. But one of the things we got here is that there's a difference between the actual nationality of the people of the Creator and those that might adopt the ways of the Creator. All right. Now, if he adopt the ways of the Creator fully, he won't eat stuff that's died of itself either. So even if it's so-called a resident or, a stranger, he would say, look, I'm not doing that because, the Creator don't want y'all to do it, so I'm not doing it either. If it ain't good for you, it's not good for me. But, so there's a lot of moral questions concerning this particular law right here, as well as other laws in the book. It would be interesting if it wasn't so many different viewpoints of a lot of laws that's in the book that's written down. So when we talk about selling them, we could sell it because, the Creator, let's say, you don't have to take a loss from it. And it's all about meat, beast, flesh that we're not supposed to eat. All right. Because we know, according to Leviticus, if it's unclean fish, you could keep it in its abomination. You're not supposed to just eat it if it's, that's unclean fish. But when it comes down to certain other animals or creatures, we not died of stuff that we normally would eat, we can't eat it. It's usually preferred. It's talking about the kosher animals that we could eat, like say if it's a cow or a goat or a sheep, those animals like that. We're talking about tithe. We learn about tithe in this particular portion as well. And when we learn about tithes, you always wonder, and it's talking about alms and giving tithes. Most churches talk about tithes, but tithes in scriptures, as noted in scriptures, it's not always a 10%. But some people just take it across the board as 10%. But when we study our law, and tithe is not cash, it might be turned into cash at certain times. Certain produce had to be turned into cash if you live too far away for certain things, that the journey be too far. All right, so just want to bring out those particular areas there. Then you always have this question, because we also talk about charity and giving charity and alms. So within that and within this particular portion. And when we talk about that in this particular portion of giving charity and alms, you got to say, okay, if I'm giving somebody or lending somebody, because we're going to the 15th, about the law, 15th chapter, law, 7th year release. We got a tithing, several times a year we take portions of the land. Usually the second, I believe the third, fourth, and the 6th year is where you gather certain produce of the land. 2 of the years, you got to, bring it and eat in the place of God shows, and 2 of the years you can eat within your gates. But anyway, but when it gets down to certain lending, we'd say we're going to lend out to anybody. You always going to say, well, should I help and aid and give to this poor individual? When we talk about charity and tzedakah, that's the word we use. Tzedakah really comes from the word tzedek, which means righteous, or pious. And tzedakah just, meant, we use it today, even though it means, in a sense of charity. But, but we say, well, if we look at tzedek, it means like being justice, So from the root word is tzedek, which is justice. All right. Is it just that I earned something through my sweat, blood, and tears, and I'm obligated to give it to somebody else who haven't worked for it? And then how is that supposed to be rewarding to me, even if you say you're going to reward me later, knowing I worked and they didn't work and they're getting? So those are things, topics, we could, explore it a little bit better, in discussion. And we talk, and we talk about, when you talk about the first thing they heard, it's like, and some people think about types and stuff like that. It's different because the first thing they heard, you only do it one time. One time. You got a herd of sheep. The first one belongs to the Creator, period. It's not every year. The first one that's born, period. That's it. So that stops. That's not every year. You're talking about a percentage of your herd. So some things is not a yearly thing, but that's to be discussed amongst your teachers as well. When we talk about the 12th verse, which is interesting. If I buy a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman be sold unto thee, he shall serve thee 6 years. In the 7th year, thou shalt let him go free from thee. And when thou lettest him go free from thee, thou shalt not let him go empty. Thou shalt furnish him liberally out of thy flock, and out of thy threshing floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto him. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondsman in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee. Therefore, I command thee this thing today. Moses said, I command you to do that because we left Egypt. We didn't leave broke. And in this country here, we know a lot of our ancestors that went through the slavery. When they say you was free, what you going to start with? What you have to live off of? Usually, when people send their kids off to college, they buy them extra clothes, buy them TVs, furniture, microwaves, refrigerators, try to stock up their dorm room and stuff like that. And they paying for their college for them to better themselves. And say, but they're helping them emancipate themselves. But here's a person that's serving, like most of those that went through the black diaspora here. And when they say we were free, and when we talk about the 40 acres of land and a couple of mules, that was only for a few people. That wasn't for everybody. That was an agreement. I think, if I recall my history correctly, maybe wrong, but Sherman agreed with that. He had a few old mules they didn't need anymore after the war, and he promised the people in that particular area, and I think the Southeast, one of the Carolinas, I believe, I'm not sure, or Georgia, somewhere along there, 40 acres, and then they supposed to have agreed to it overall, but a lot of people lost the 40 acres when Lincoln was talking about the emancipation, trying to emancipate slaves. He paid some of the people to release them. So some of the people was paid already, got their 40 acres worth when their masters in certain other states released the slaves because of the stipend that was coming from the government. But that's another story. I'm not here to speak on that, at length as either. But according to our way of life, if a man be sold, and say, why would a Hebrew be sold to you? Why would a person be sold? Now, some people might say to look at it two ways. One, when you go for a job, your resume, you're trying to sell yourself to the boss to earn a living. All right. Or you could have stole something, can't afford to pay it back in ancient times. So therefore, you can't afford to pay it back. So therefore, you got to work off your debt. All right. And that's part of the way of working off your debt. All right. So it's two ways. Either you're hired out, and if you're hired out, you're not considered brought, But if you brought because you created a crime and cannot pay for, the fine for the crime and plus the principle thereof, and then you were sold for your theft. So your theft, might be far less than the amount of servitude you get. That's why you're not allowed to leave empty, in the 7th year. All right. So, and then we talk about the 16th chapter. We ends up talking about the Shalom, the pilgrimage times. Talking about Passover. Talk about the Feast of Weeks, which has no date on it as well. And then we talk about the Feast of Tabernacles. So one of the things too, before we move on, a lot of times, like I said earlier, we mentioned about the place. I want to bring this out before I forget. Let it slip my mind. I was really waiting for another time of the year, but I said I might as well share it now. Is that what makes the tabernacle and the temple so different? Because it's always talking about in this particular chapter, when we cross into and go into the land, we're talking about the place. Why it never mentioned about so much the place while we was out in the wilderness? We had the Mishkan, we had the divine presence, we had the cloud, we had the pillar of fire by day and the cloud, the pillar of fire by night and the cloud by day. So why we don't find that term, the place, Hamakom, being used so much concerning our track through the desert. So one of the things they look at in reference to the temple that Solomon built is that when Solomon built the temple, he built it on a hill. Now, I'm not going to be able to go into too much in that right now, but the temple was built on a mountain, not on level ground. So that means you had to constantly ascend up on there. The tabernacle itself, always on level ground, always, never on the mountain, and it's always in the middle of everybody, and it's on level ground. The difference is the tabernacle itself, when it got up and moved and was placed down and erected, it made the ground holy. Whereas the temple itself is placed on holy ground. So when we look at one of the marked differences between the tabernacle and the Mishkan itself, the Mishkan, wherever it sat, it made that spot holy. Whereas when we come to the temple itself, it was set at the place, the holy ground, that God wanted it to be placed at. Some say where Isaac was offered up to in that same area, but it's on a hill, and the hill is not level. So that means that now the actual ark being in the first temple, definitely that's a holy area, but the ark was holy within itself because of what it contained and what the purpose was. But that's why it's called the Ark of the Covenant. But the ark itself did not make the ground holy, by itself, and it was holiness in itself. Whereas the tabernacle with the ark and everything in it became holy because it was made by the directions of the Creator. So therefore, wherever it sat at, it made that spot holy. And you notice that the temple is destroyed, and we don't have the tabernacle either. But we still have the spot that's considered sacred for us. But though the tabernacle moved 42 times from, as we read in the book of Deuteronomy, the 42 journeys we had, we don't have not one spot that we could say, this is where the tabernacle once sat. But we don't see a temple been destroyed, close to 2,000 years, and we still say that is a sacred spot. So this is something I take away to consider as we go forward. So we're going to the book of Isaiah. I'm trying to be a little more briefer. We're going to the book of Isaiah, the 54th chapter, and they're going to be at the 5th verse, 11th verse, 54th chapter, 11th verse, and it's going to 55, 5. I like people to try to read this one as well over again. This is the third Haftarah, the second Haftarah comfort from the time of Tisha B'Av. And as we go through the things of comforting, we know that it's we usually always occur either just before the month of Elul, the 6th month, or on Rosh Chodesh of the 6th month. So we're going to pick it up here. All right, if you got it, Chief, you can start.
We're in the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, starting from verse 11. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
O thou afflicted, tossed with tempest, and not comforted, behold, I will set my stones in fair colors, and lay thy foundations with sapphires. Now make thy pinnacles of rubies, and thy gates of carbuncles, and all thy border of precious stones. And all thy children shall be taught of Yehovah, and great shall be the peace of thy children. In righteousness shalt thou be established, be thou far from oppression, for thou shalt not fear and from ruin, for it shall not come near thee. Behold,
one more verse, go ahead. Go ahead, keep on. 15. Yes,
behold,
15.
They may gather together, but not by me. Whosoever
Right.
shall gather together against thee shall fall because of thee.
Hold it right there. All right. Now, the other Haftarahs of comfort wasn't, it's based on the Creator doing this, and we doing our part. We making a recognition and stuff like that. a contributory factor overall in a nutshell. Where in this particular Haftarah comfort, now this is irregardless of what we contribute to our own salvation. This is what the Creator Himself saying He's going to do, simply because it's so the comfort in here is not based on the conditions of Israel. It's based on solely the promise of the Creator concerning the people of Israel as they would come out of their exile state. And what's related to the actual sidra is the word behold, hine. Hine itself means to means to see, but so when you behold something, you're actually taking a deeper look into it. So in the beginning, we were talking about see, that what He placed in was a blessing and a curse. Here is behold what the Creator going to do. I created, said behold, they may gather together, but not by me. All right. So they're letting you know right then and there that we're supposed to recognize, and everybody else going to be recognizing that this is the Creator doing this. The children of Israel is not even putting no effort into this action here. 16th verse.
Verse 16, it reads, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the fire of coals, and bringeth forth a weapon for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment, thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahuwah, and their due reward from me, saith Yahuwah.
All right, there, before we go to the 51st, do the next 5 verses. The thing is, letting you know right then and there that the Creator letting you know that not only He made the weapons, He made the guy that formed the weapons. So that's why He could say, without any kind of a mental reservation, that no weapon form will prosper against you, because He gave the power to the guy to even make what He's making. And He said He got the power to make sure it's useless against you. So this is, a real strong comforting factor for people that's going to come back to a place that's better than what they left, on a higher level than what they left, more prestigious as a people than what they left. You left out as slaves, vagabonds, and stuff like that, but you're coming back as royalty. Keep going. What it says in the 55th chapter?
Book of Isaiah, we're in the book of Isaiah, chapter 55, verse 1. Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye for water, and he that have no money, come ye buy and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your gain for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear, and come unto me. Hear, and your soul shall live. And I'll make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David.
Hold right there. Now, no, and I can't say it enough, but every time we go to the city, the portion of comforting, you can't think of a religion where the Creator, their gods, the false gods of any antiquity, talking about, why don't you give me your ear? I want to be a covenant with you. I'm gonna do this for you. I'm gonna do that for you. You don't read that in any kind of literature or mythology, where the God actually said they're gonna do something for their people that actually pray and worship to Him. And the Creator said, look, I want to be I want to have a relationship with us. So the Creator, our God, want a relationship with us, and He said, look here, incline your ear. I'm reaching out. So when you tell me to incline my ear towards you, that means that you came as far as you could possibly come right now. You need me to do a little bit of contributing, in the sense of at least listen. You ain't got to turn, just lean a little bit. So that's to show you what the Creator want to do for us. All right. But as we go forward, and it says what? Oh, before we get to that, and even the sure mercies of David. So when he talking about this here, the sure mercies of David, what he promised David as an individual this will be given to the whole nation. So before, this pure mercy was only for David and his people, anything that's immediate to him. Now the Creator saying in the latter days and latter times, when all this come about, that this will be for all of us. But I always tell you, mercy come after judgment all the time. But read a little bit further. All right, the last one.
It reads.
The fourth verse.
Verse 4. Behold, I have given him for witness to the peoples, a prince and commander to the peoples. Behold, thou shalt call a nation that thou knowest not, and a nation that knew not thee shall run unto thee. Because Yehudah thy God, and for the Holy One of Yisrael, for he hath glorified thee. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Now, I'd like to go back first because it says, behold, I have given him for a witness to the peoples, a prince and a commander to the peoples. This is talking about the nation of Israel, not no one individual. Now, a lot of people like to make it as one individual, but we ourselves, we're supposed to be the ones that actually, we're going to be the heads. We're going to come back as the commander of the people, in a sense, because people are going to look to us and want us to tell them how they should live and serve this God. So therefore, whereas we left off as the tail, we're coming back as the head, and as the head is up as a collective unit as a people. So therefore, we know later on when we read it in certain prophecies about the return, that they're gonna bear us on their shoulders and everything like that there, and and the queen's gonna be like our nurslings. So that means they're gonna treat us royal and bring us back as prestigious individuals. Not where we left as slavery and we come back prestigious. One of the things I was sharing with a brother earlier is that, what is so unique, and when we talk about Joseph, is that, Joseph at one position of his life needed to be saved and wound up being a savior for a group of people, and sometimes roles will be changing. So our role will be changed like that, where as you be sold into and put into a pit and sold into a captivity, and where you actually need saving, and later on the role reversal, you could become the savior for the world by winning friends, influence people to a better way of life and a better lifestyle, and sharing the light, of Torah to the world. So I hope you got something out of what I said. I know I went a little fast in some areas, but discuss those points with your various leaders and teachers, and any mistakes been my own. And I say to you, Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom to you, Nasik, Torah, for the work that you do. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.